the air for the today's Hangout on the air for the Postini to Google Apps transition update. This is for government customers. We're going to wait a few minutes to let people join. If you have questions, please post your questions on the Google moderator panel. The link is at the bottom of the page here. It is case sensitive, so just please be aware of that. Thank you. All right, for those of you that are just joining, welcome to today's Hangout on the Air as part of the Postini transition to Google Apps. This transition will be targeted for government customers. We will begin in a few minutes. We're going to give people some time to join. If you have questions, please post them on our Google moderator dory. The link is at the bottom of the page, and remember, it is case sensitive. Thank you. All right, everyone, we're going to wait 2 more minutes to begin. Again, if you have questions, please post them on the Google moderator page. The short link is at the bottom of the screen. It is the Google moderator link. It is case sensitive. We will start in about 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, for those of you just joining, we'll begin in about a minute. This is the Hangout on the Air for the Postini transition. It's an update on the transition to Google Apps for our government customers. And again, one more reminder, if you have questions, please post them on the Google moderator page. The short link is at the bottom of your screen, and it is case sensitive. All right, hello everyone. I want to welcome you to today's Hangout on the Air as part of the Postini transition to Google Apps. This will be an update specifically targeted for our government customers. If you have questions, at the bottom of every page we have a link to Google Moderator. It is a short link. It is case sensitive. Much of the information you'll hear today has already been presented in other Hangouts, but we're going to share some specific information for our government customers. So for today, I just want to introduce you to our speakers. My name is Jack Halperin. I'm the head of eDiscovery Enterprise and managing the Postini transition. Also joined by Chris Haas, a program manager for Google Apps for Government. You may actually know him and have worked with him. He'll be answering questions that we have on the Google Moderator page. I want to point out that some of this information is forward-looking. Some of the dates are subject to change. And also, at the end, we will cover your questions and answers. For the agenda today, first we're going to go through a general update. We'll talk a little bit about the Postini transition. If you've already joined these Hangouts in the past, much of this will be familiar to you. We'll talk about the transition process and the timeline, both for direct customers, those that have purchased Postini directly from Google, and those that have purchased Postini through a reseller. We'll give you some additional information for government customers, for data location, for example. We'll talk about preparing for your transition. And I'll go through some release updates, and then we will cover your questions and answers if we've not covered them as part of the Hangout. Again, just a reminder, if you're just joining, we want to take your questions. We want to be able to answer them. At the bottom of just about every slide here, we have a short link to the Google Moderator page. Please post your questions there, and we will address them either during the Hangout or at the end of the Hangout. It is case sensitive. So what is the Postini transition? Ultimately, it's really an upgrade to the Google Apps platform. We're transitioning Postini services to the Google Apps platform for all of our Postini users. If you're just a GMS customer or Google Message Security, you will manage your message security and filtering through the apps platform. We've built many of the same features and functions into the apps platform, and we'll have similar functionality on apps. If you're using Postini archiving, so you're either using GMD, Google Message Discovery, or A&D archiving and discovery, your users will transition to Google Apps Vault. And if you're using GME, the encryption solution provided by our partner Zix, that solution will continue. It's native to the apps platform. It was just launched officially yesterday, and it has been renamed to Google Apps Message Encryption. The benefit of this transition is that you're moving all of your Postini services to the apps platform, which is a modern, scalable, and secure platform. So you're going to have the benefits of all of Google's infrastructure and its knowledge and its capabilities. There are a few things that aren't changing, and I want to go through that. We're getting a lot of questions about that, and I'll probably readdress them in the Q&A. But your Postini pricing and policies will be honored. So for example, if you just have users that are using GMS only, we'll continue to honor that price while you're using similar functionality on the apps platform. So if you're using the apps platform only for message security, spam filtering, and compliance controls, you'll only be charged for the GMS pricing. You're not going to be required to use Gmail or switch to Gmail to continue service, so we will support third-party email services. And as a general rule, your reseller relationships won't change. There is an exception if you have customers with different resellers or different different end sellers for Postini and Google Apps. If you're a customer that has each of those, there will be a change, and I will cover that in a later slide. One other question we often get is, what about Vault policies versus Postini policies? I'll cover this at the end again, but we will have a Vault former employee license, which is at no cost to you, and you will not need to keep your apps license. That is a change from what is posted on the Vault page today, but trust us when we say that we have done the work necessary to support your Postini pricing and policies. So we do have a situation where we have customers that have multiple resellers, or they're through a reseller and they have a Google relationship also. I just want to walk through this. So let's say that you have your Postini service direct from Google. You purchased it from Google, but your Google Apps service is through a reseller. You will continue to work with your reseller and directly with your reseller going forward. If your Postini service is with the reseller, on the other hand, and your Google Apps service is currently direct from Google, you will actually end up with all of your services direct from Google. However, be aware that you can transition or transfer to the reseller after your transition to apps is complete. Now, if your Postini service is with reseller A and your app service is with reseller B, you will end up with reseller B because you're transitioning to the apps platform, and that is the reseller that has your apps relationship. If you're not using Google Apps today and you're with the reseller, you'll continue to stay with the reseller. And just to point this out, if you're direct with Google and you're not using Google Apps today and you're only using Postini, you will stay direct with Google. When you have two partners or you're with Google and a partner, we'll coordinate on the transition with everyone. You don't have to do anything, and we will provide more details on the billing aspects for this type of transition. If you've already paid your reseller in one case and you're transitioning to another reseller or relationship, we will handle that with service credits so that you are not losing out on any of the time you may have paid again. So a few things to point out here to cover the process for the transition. If you're a direct customer, Google will invite you to transition. If you're a resold customer, your reseller will invite you to transition once Google deems you eligible. And if you haven't joined these Hangouts before, there's just a few things to point out here. First, I do want to point out that there's several parts to eligibility for transition. One of them, of course, is have you agreed to the new terms? The other one is, are the transition utilities available to support your transition type? And the third qualification is, do we have similar functionality on the apps platform? Once all three of those are present, then you may be invited to transition. I will point out that we've started the GMS transitions for direct customers, and we've done well over 12,000 of those to date. We're starting to ramp up on our transitions for GMD direct customers, and we're beginning to start the resold customer process. So if you're with a reseller, then we are going to be starting that in the near future and ramping up on that. One other thing to point out here on timing is that those of you that have a reseller, two resellers, or a reseller and direct Google relationship, your transition will take a little longer. We're working out the aspects of transitioning your billing. The transition itself is designed to be completely automated. We want to make this process as simple and flexible as possible for you, our customer. We're going to transition your users. So if you're an apps customer today, all of your users will transition for you. If you're not an apps customer or you have former employees in GMD or the archiving solution, we'll create the users for you. And if you're not an apps customer today, we'll also create your domain for you. If you're using GMS, the Message Security and Compliance solution, your policies and your settings will be transitioned automatically. If you're an archiving customer, there's several things that will transition automatically. All of your content will transition automatically, your user messages. Your investigations will transition over. So the user investigations and named investigations will transition over as matters in Vault. All of your legal holds will transition over, whether they're full account holds, they're targeted holds by date range, or they're saved search results. They will transition over. If you have retention and archiving policies, they will also transition over. We'll transition those and set them up in Vault. Your audit logs will also transition over, but they'll be exported as CSV and provided as a download to you. The one thing we are not transitioning over are your saved searches. Not your saved search results, but that's just the search criteria. The search is different in Vault versus GMD. The syntax is different. We cannot transition those over. Now, if you're using encryption today, so a Google Message encryption or GME customer, your settings will be transitioned to the new game or Google Apps message encryption environment. So that will be available to you also. And you may have heard in the past about large or complex customers. We're now calling these advanced customer transitions, and some of you on today's Hangout may actually fall into this category, so we just want to cover this. And who should use this option? Customers who want a customizable transition should consider using this option. And at the end of the day, you'll know who you are. And there's several reasons you may want to consider using this advanced tool. You have a large number of rules or policies. This is a great time to revisit your rules and policies, see if they're up to date. We know for many of you, Postini was lock, load, and forget. You set up Postini and you didn't do anything with your rules after that. If you have a large number of organizations or domains managed in your account, you may want to use the advanced migration tool. If you don't want to transition your policies or rules, you want to create new routing or compliance rules, you want to change your archiving policies, now is an ideal time to do that, and it's a great opportunity for you to do so by using the advanced transition tool. We also give you the opportunity to skip certain steps in the transition with the advanced transition tool. Again, if you didn't want to transition your policies or you didn't want to transition your organizational units, we'll give you that opportunity. And the advanced customer transition solution will take a step-by-step transition process, such as creating the organizations, the users, and the domains. We've thought through all of these steps. We've thought through these processes. However, you don't have to use this solution. We do have a fully automated tool that will run through all of the transition steps should you choose to use that. We just have a screenshot here of the advanced tool. It really gives you the flexibility to manage the transition. You'll see at the top, it actually tells you your customer name, what your state is, so the transition is started. We have a dry run to run through all the settings, and then we have a list of all the steps in the process. Dry run errors, unsupported features, creating domains, creating organizations, and so on. So you really have options to run through each of these steps should you choose to use the advanced tool. It gives you flexibility. Now, specific to our government customers, I know we're going to get lots of questions on this. We haven't really started transitioning government customers yet. They will depend on your relationship. Again, if you're with a reseller, those transitions haven't started yet. And if you're with a reseller, one or more resellers, or a reseller and a Google relationship for Postini and apps, your transition will take a bit longer. But for the most part, you can start to see transitions in late Q2 and Q3 most likely. And depending on the timing, you'll have typically up to 60 days or more to complete the transition process. We'll tell you all about that. If you want more details on what the transition process looks like overall, we have other Hangouts that we have done in the past. They are posted in our Transition Center or also on our Plus page. So the transition services on the apps platform will handle data location differently. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware of this. If you're a current Google Apps for Government customer, any data location will continue to apply. So if you have any data location with Google, it will continue to apply. If you're a classic Postini customer, so you're only using Postini services, Google does not run data located services the same way Postini did. We can provide more information if you have questions, but we don't have the same type of systems with Google where you're only on a single system in a single location. I want to talk a little bit about compliance certifications. Google services are covered by the SSAE 16 Type 2 and SOC 2 audits, also the ISO 27001 audit, and if you're a Google Apps for Government customer and you're in our Google Apps for Government environment, we do have FISMA certification. We also have some other protection options. We have the DPA, the Data Protection Agreements, and you can access those in your admin console once you've made the transition to Google Apps. If you are interested and you are doing any business in the EMEA region, we have MCCs, Model Contract Clauses. You can also agree to those in your admin console. Once you've completed your transition, you can access those, and if you're a Google Apps customer today, you can also access those there. I just want to post a reminder here that if you have questions, please post them on our Dory page, the Google Moderator page. The link is at the bottom here. It is case sensitive, so please do post your questions. I also want to talk a little bit about now preparing for your transition. So, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of you set up Postini and you forgot about it. You might have been adding new users over time. You might have had a synced environment. But the first thing you want to do is you want to verify your admin contacts in the Postini admin console. Log in, make sure they're verified. We will send notification to the admin contacts in the admin console. Next, you want to verify your domains if you haven't already done so. This will delay your transition if you haven't verified all of your domains, so please ensure that you verify them. And if you're what we call a classic customer, a customer that only uses Postini and is not a current Google Apps customer, we've created a short link for you to look into the firewall change. You need to change your firewall to support Google's IP range. And why do you want to do this? Well, the first thing is you want to ensure that you continue to receive your email after the transition. That's exceptionally important for you. The other benefit, or the other important reason to do this, is you want to prevent mail traffic from bypassing the apps platform. You want to ensure that your filtering continues. This will protect your organization and your environment. Changing your firewall to support the Google IP ranges prevents unexpected spam from direct connections by malicious senders. It also locks down your server to protect your network from spam, malware, and virus infections. We have an extensive help center, so if you haven't yet visited it, we have a short link here. Again, it is case sensitive. You can also visit postini-transition.googleapps.com. We have information there. You can also visit our Google Plus page and follow us on our Google Plus page for more information. We have a lot of great information out there. There's links to prior Hangouts. We've done in-depth Hangouts on the transition itself. On Life After Postini for GMS, or the Google Message Security customers, we've done a deep dive on the settings in the Apps Admin Console, as well as a deep dive into Life After Postini archiving on Google Apps Vault. We have a lot of resources for you. We'll continue to publish more resources and additional transition guides for you. Please be aware, if you are looking at the Google Apps Vault Help Center, there are some differences between how we are managing licenses for transition customers versus Vault customers today, and you will have a Vault former employee license that will be at no charge. Next, I want to talk a little bit about features in development. What's available now, what have we released before? So first off, I just want to point out that if you're a Google Apps customer today and you're using Gmail, spam management will be managed through your Gmail interface. You'll no longer have to access a separate interface or separate email, such as the quarantine summary or the message center. But what have we released to date? We have released QSUM, or the quarantine summary. We've added additional features such as QSUM on demand, and we will be providing clean mail in there also if you want that to go to your sender, so you can manage your spam, your marked spam, as well as messages that were marked as not spam, allowing you to check both false positives and false negatives. We have copy settings, so you can copy settings to other OUs. We've introduced Vault targeted legal hold, so if you used a date range restricted hold in Postini archiving, or you had saved search results, you can get similar functionality in Vault today. We've introduced the SMTP relay service and allowed senders. And we've made upgrades to the Secure Transport Compliance Layer, the TLS upgrades to support our Google Apps message encryption customers. We've got several features coming this quarter, and I also want to point out, and next quarter, that we are going to continue to develop and advance this platform. So once we have similar functionality to what you have today, we will continue to add new features and functions. Coming in Q2, we have online reporting in the admin console. So we'll start rolling out the reporting this quarter. We're also planning to go into Trusted Tester in the near future, as well as release Message Center. For those of you that are not using Gmail, you'll have access also to Message Center. We'll be providing admin undelete, which is similar to the resend message functionality that you have today, but we will be providing that to admins at first. At some point in Q3, we will provide admin quarantine for you if you're using that today in Postini. And also at some point, likely in the second half of this year, we will provide end user access to our Vault customers. I just want to repeat the disclaimer here. Timing is subject to change. This is software development. You can always follow the transition at postini-transition.googleapps.com. I also want to point out that if you are a GME or Google Message Encryption user, we did release Google Apps Message Encryption, which is the new version of the platform native to apps that was released yesterday, and we will start transitioning those customers once they become eligible. So also want everyone to stay informed. we have a ton of resources out there. We have the Life After demos I talked about a few minutes ago. We have short links here. They are available on YouTube. You can view them anytime. Again, these are case sensitive. So we have a transition from GMS to the Google Apps platform. We have a transition from GMD to Google Apps Vault or Vault. And we also did a Hangout, and I don't have the link there, for our GME customers, talking about Google Apps message encryption and what it's going to be like there. I encourage everyone to review the transition guide if you haven't already done so. This has a lot of instructions and information on the transition process. Please follow the short link there or go to the Postini Transition Center for more information. We also invite you to follow us on our Google Plus page. We have a Postini Transition page. We post updates there about Hangouts. And we also, as I've mentioned multiple times, we have a resource center that we continue to update at postini-transition.googleapps.com. If you have questions about features, functions, differences in the platforms, we have those available for you. At this point, we have one final Hangout on the air scheduled. That's at the end of June, on June 25th. We'll introduce or talk about Message Center, and we'll also give you an update on our plans for the Postini end of life. And we'll talk about what our plans are to transition everyone to apps. We'll talk about final timing. Again, I encourage everyone to follow us on Google Plus or continue to follow the postini-transition.googleapps.com page. And I'm now going to cover the Google Moderator page and questions there. Again, if you have questions, please post them at the link at the bottom of the page. It is case sensitive, so please be sure to type that in carefully. So the first question I'm going to cover, it's about user holds in place for quite a few former employees. Will that increase our cost in apps and Vault? I did cover that earlier, but I will readdress that now. Your pricing and policies for Postini services will not be changing. We have created a Vault former employee license, and we will automatically create your former users or your former employees in Vault, and we will provide those licenses to you. There are some differences currently in the Vault Help Center because of differences for customers that purchase Vault directly at this time, but the Vault former employee license does not require an apps license and is a $0 license. You will automatically have access to that as part of the Postini transition. Chris, if you're there, I'm going to pass a question over to you. Someone's asked about getting a copy of our SSAE 16 audit report in advance of the transition. You want to take that one?
Sure, just to confirm, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, if you would like a copy of the SSAE 16 report, you should contact either your sales manager, or if you're a smaller organization and you work directly with Google Online Sales, contact your online sales representative and ask them that question. They can begin the process of possibly getting you a copy of our SSAE 16 report.
Excellent. I appreciate that. I'm going to run through some questions here. I don't know if there's a lot of questions for Chris, but I'll run through these. Will administrators be able to export email directly to a PDF or similar format for FOIA compliance? Export to an inbox and then converting is not the most streamlined process. At this point, we do not support export to PDF. We are looking, as part of future development plans, to consider other ways to export the data, but unfortunately right now we cannot export directly to PDF format from Vault or from the Google Apps admin console. As far as how would you know if you've accepted the new terms and conditions? If you're direct with Google, we would have sent those to you already. And if you're still on the Postini services, you should be fine. If you're with a reseller, your reseller may have different options, or a partner. They may have just continued to renew you on the current terms and notified you of the transition. The one thing I will point out here is please continue to renew your Postini services until you have made the transition. This is probably the most important thing to say about the transition. Continue to renew your services and continue to stay on Postini. We will then transition you when everything is done. Next question here is, I've not gotten any info about this transition from my reseller so far, and you're not feeling confident that they'll invite you to transition. Can Google handle this communication with us directly? The first thing I want to point out here and encourage everyone to do is I want to encourage you to follow us on the G+ page as well as the Postini-transition.googleapps.com site. If you're a current Google Apps customer, you should be able to contact support today through the admin console. If you're just a Postini customer, likewise, you can contact support and talk to us about the transition, and we can get you the information you need. As I mentioned earlier, just for all of our resold customers, you will not have heard about the actual transition per se. You will not have been invited yet because we haven't started with that invitation process. But on the other hand, feel free to reach out to us for more information. And again, resold customers will likely not be invited till late in Q2, and we go on calendar quarters at Google, if not in Q3. And the timing of your invitation will depend on the complexity and size of your environment. If you're just a GMS-only customer, you're not using Google Apps, or you're a GMS customer using Google Apps, you'll probably be invited before the larger GMS customers or our GMD customers. Another question here, Drive and Vault. Will Drive documents be stored in Vault? We are currently in Trusted Tester at this point on Drive content in Vault. We will likely release the first version of that sometime either this quarter or next quarter, and we'll continue to evolve that solution. So if you're a Google Apps customer today and you're on Postini archiving, you will have access to Vault for Drive when it is released. If you are not currently an Apps customer and you are transitioning from GMD to Vault and you'd like to use Drive, you can use Drive also after the transition. Another question here about MX entries to new settings outside of Postini. So ultimately, we would like you to switch your MX records once you have completed the transition process, but it is not a requirement immediately. You will actually continue to work in a pass-through mode, and we do have information about MX records and how to change them in the transition site. So that is available. I encourage you to visit the Postini Transition site, postini-transition.googleapps.com, that you're probably seeing on your screen. At what point will the transition tool be available? We will invite you to transition. Typically, you will have about 60 days to complete the transition, so you can do it on day 1 or day 60. Again, your invitation timing will depend on whether you are a direct customer or resold, whether you have multiple relationships, as well as whether you're using GMS only or GMS and GMD. So the transition tools are available. As I mentioned earlier, we've transitioned well over 12,000 customers, and we continue to increase the numbers. So let's see here. Next question is, we're interested in consolidating 2 independent Google Apps domains. We need to transition from Postini to Vault in order to consolidate. How can we volunteer to transition now or very soon? That actually is a complex transition for us, and we're working on the one-to-many and many-to-one scenario that you outline here. You probably can't transition immediately unless only at this point, but I urge you to reach out to your sales rep or support, and we can work with you on that. It'd be good to know what you're trying to do so that we can track this and be aware of that. So again, please reach out to Google on this. And then I think this is the last question. Chris, I don't think you were needed that much here, but I appreciate you joining. We have a total of 10 questions, and I think we've covered them. The last question is about managing retention in Vault. The question regards if you have multiple retention policies. And I'm just going to read the question. We have 10-year record retention. How will Vault handle 1, 3, and 5-year retention and delete, in which Postini could not do? Vault is very flexible in terms of how you manage your retention policies. You can have multiple rules. You can have rules across different organizational units, and you can also use any searchable criteria in Gmail to manage those rules. So if you are a Google Apps user and a Gmail user, you can use labels, and you can set label and have your users label the messages, or if you wanted multiple retention labels across different organizations, you also could add that there. That is all the questions, everyone. Again, I encourage you to follow us on Google+. Reach out to support if you have questions, or reach out to your reseller if you have a reseller relationship and you want to ask them questions. We are continuing to push forward on the transitions. And again, just a reminder, because I know that's a lot of questions from people, if you are with a reseller or have two resellers or a reseller and Google relationship, you will not have been invited to transition yet. Most of our Gov customers, if not all of them, have not yet been invited to transition. So if you haven't heard from us on starting your transition, I wouldn't be too worried. And please make sure that your admin contacts are updated in the Postini admin console. Just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And again, reach out to us if you have questions and follow us on Google+. Thank you very much and have a great day.